There was once a time when E3 demos got us excited, a time when graphics downgrades weren't used to describe every single game. All that changed on May 27, 2014. A game came out which started a new era, an era where what will go wrong with this game is the first thing that we think of whenever we look at any upcoming titles. Watch Dogs paved the way for that. I'd go as far as to say it's the godfather of games that you never know how or what it'll look like. But one thing's for certain, it's not looking like the pre-release version. This was a game that was supposed to compete with GTA 5 and beat it. Laugh all you want, but back in the day, Ubisoft were considered great developers. Now mentioning Ubisoft and great in the same sentence feels wrong, much like saying tomato is a fruit. Watch Dogs came out after a hype job much like Cyberpunk 2077. In the 2 years leading up to the game's release, Ubisoft showed us gameplay footage that didn't look like it belonged to a 2013 game. Even before the next generation of consoles had come out, Watch Dogs looked like a game plucked out of the future. The incredible amount of anticipation led to Ubisoft's biggest launch week up until that point, but soon the cracks began to show. The retail copy looked plain, low-res textures, flat lighting, even effects like smoke went on par with what we had seen. Just look at the street, everything looks bland. But on the other hand, gameplay mechanics, hacking, combat, or just animations in general haven't been removed or downgraded at all. So the game in the pre-release footage and the actual game are the same. It's just that one of them doesn't look quite as good. Ubisoft should absolutely get heat for misleading, but at the end of the day, the game you have in your hands is the same game as you got excited for. It's funny because we all love to say graphics don't matter, but as soon as something like this happens, we show our true colors, don't we? I have compared CD Projekt Red with Ubisoft, so here's one comparison where Ubisoft come out looking great. CD Projekt Red had stated on record that Cyberpunk 2077 was going to be the ultimate RPG experience. They promised us gameplay features like a story with unique paths. What we got was 3 cool looking options that basically led to the same experience. Ubisoft never promised anything. They stated that hacking was going to be a big part of the game, and it is. The hacking system is basic and boring by the end, but it's there as they promised. Third-person combat is one thing I would say Watch Dogs does better than every other game in the genre. Any and every weapon in the game is satisfying to use. It's a near perfect mix of power, recoil, and sound effects. If you want to see it for yourself, play GTA 5 or Mafia 3 and compare it to Watch Dogs. You'll feel the difference instantly. Between shooting, gameplay gets even better. Aiden is amazingly fluid, never unresponsive, as controllable as a video game character can get. And Ubisoft's experience with Assassin's Creed games is very useful here. Moving without stutter, parkouring over obstacles, the slightly shaky camera all blend in together to form something that remains fun, plain and simple. Every third-person open world game has a problem. They're never great at anything. Sure, they are jack of all trades. Think of GTA 5. Driving is alright, the story is alright, combat is alright, but nothing is truly extraordinary, and it's not just GTA 5 either. I have noticed that with most open world games. But Watch Dogs' combat is extraordinary. The game has a brilliant combat system and great movement. When you have that and you add a few new things like crouching, you get a great stealth system. Another thing the game is great at. Watch Dogs' combat is basically made up of 4 aspects: gunplay, hacking, melee, and movement. Hand-to-hand combat is just one button, so that's pretty useless. Hacking is generally boring, but when you're in a shootout, it gets 10 times more interesting. Looking for distractions, explosives, cover, cameras add a lot, and that is completely unique to the franchise. This unique brand of gameplay never got stale for me at all. Normally in most games, gameplay is exciting for the first few hours, but after that we play for the rest of the story or the ending. The story here is alright, but I kept playing because I wanted more of the gameplay. Side quests here are basic, gang hideouts are so creative that I'm pretty sure it took a minute to come up with them, but because the actual gameplay is so great, I didn't mind doing the same thing over and over, which is already stale to begin with. Cars are not as controllable as Aiden himself is. First off, driving isn't downright bad. You compare it with its peers, it wouldn't stick out. It's average, and that seems to be the norm outside of pure racing games. Combat is powerful and satisfying. Driving is exactly the opposite. Cars have no weight behind them and it's never satisfying. How can cars that float around ever be satisfying? Driving missions are generally mediocre at best. The one where you escort someone across the city in the middle of a manhunt is one mission I did enjoy, but the rest get old really fast. Let's dive deep into where all of this goes down. I've said this countless times and let me tell you again. Ubisoft are masters at building game worlds. They might not be pretty, but they are spectacularly designed, especially if they recreate a real location, and Chicago is a perfect foil for everything that goes down. The high crime rate, murky weather create a dark and broody atmosphere. The game world has a little more depth than other Ubisoft titles because of the interactions you can have with the environments. But those interactions, hacking basically, are few and can get repetitive. All in all, a great city to explore, and the other little island, Pawnee, makes the game feel different in the second act. The game world is great, but I wouldn't say it's Ubisoft's best work in terms of designing an immersive world. The game was built, marketed around hacking, and as I said earlier, hacking in certain situations is pretty engaging, but you feel like they could have done so much more. They have improved hacking in the sequels, but there's still so much that could be done. Don't ask me what, because that is a little above my pay grade. The first few times when you are just exploring with no intent or purpose and the game gives you a prompt and you go with it, it's exhilarating because something fun always goes down. Maybe a huge accident wrecking an entire street, or maybe something funny, or something totally awesome like steam pipes bursting. They look so cool. Hacking in Watch Dogs is like a new toy. Incredibly fun at first and something you don't bother with after a while. A lot of people had problems with this story. It's not original by any stretch. In fact, Ubisoft might have found the least original story in a heap of unoriginal stories. Aiden is the typical brooding savage in a trench coat, who talks way too much with himself and too little when he's actually supposed to be talking. Aiden, his friends, his family, his associates, all are walking character types. It's actually quite funny how they have managed to make every character feel like they were taken out of the types of characters you'll meet in your life book. Even then, I loved whatever was going on throughout the game, and I actually loved Aiden. I might be in the minority, but the story was never meant to be the highlight. It was supposed to foil the gameplay side of things, and for me, it did that and more. And throughout the game, you'll even come across one or two characters who could be characterized as good or interesting. If Watch Dogs had come out a year before it actually did, it would have been considered one of the greatest open world games of all time. I have talked a lot about what's good about the game, what people disliked about it, and it's pretty evident the graphics downgrade was the main issue. Watch Dogs is an average looking 2014 game, but had it come out in 2013 when the next generation of consoles hadn't come out, wouldn't have disappointed at all. Because after games like Forza Motorsport 5, Rise and Infamous Second Son, which all look legit next gen, Watch Dogs doesn't stack up very well. Compare Watch Dogs' PS3 port with some of the last gen games. It looks better than most. Yeah, GTA does look better, but not by much. Even if it did, no one would have cared, because well, nobody expected Watch Dogs to be better than GTA 5. The lesson to learn is simple. Be honest before releasing your game, because when you ship out games like this, there's no way to trick anyone into thinking it's of better quality than it actually is. With most forms of art, there's a subjective element. Even if it's bad, you have the "it's not for everyone" excuse. But when a game is on my screen and it doesn't look like you told me, repeatedly by the way, there's no subjective opinion there. It either looks great or not. Well, that's the end of that. If you like to see me rank every Ubisoft game I've played, or rank every game I've played, or you like something else on the screen, do give it a chance, it means a lot. Thank you and have a great day wherever you are.